It's an honor to have Peter here. Peter now, after having been the CEO of OIST and being the president of Max Planck in Germany, he now comes to Japan once a quarter because he's on the board of Tokyo University. It's always very, very exciting because Peter, of course, is one of the leading scientists of his generation, one of the leading university administrators of his generation, but he's also a very curious mind. And, particularly this creative spark, where does, scientific innovation, creativity, ideas, where does that come from? And how does that connect to the creative process in the arts? That's a deep passion that Peter has been investigating over the last, 6-7 years. And Peter, we're an honor, to have your presentation. Take it away.
Thank you, Jesper. Thank you, Savako. Pity my mother couldn't hear this. I'm very happy to be back at Asia Society, not only because it's a beautiful place, more importantly is what's sitting at the table. That's a lot of friends and colleagues I have been interacting with during my time in Japan. And so I'm looking forward to have exchanges of opinions later maybe, or on another day while I'm here. If not, as Jesper said, I'm here 4 times a year. So there will always be an opportunity. Today, I would like to explore creativity, as Jesper pointed out, in the context of science and art. 2 domains often treated separately, yet deeply intertwined. As Plato, an old champ in philosophy, once wrote, "The arts and music in particular give soul to the universe, wings to the mind, and flight to the imagination." Those words capture something timeless. I come to this conversation as a scientist, a molecular geneticist, developmental biologist, more precisely with a professional interest in, if you wish, the hard science, in basic research. Over the years, however, and Jesper indicated that, I have come to realize that beneath experimental data and discoveries lies a powerful and essential unifying force, and that is creativity. It is this creative force, this creative power, that ultimately also leads to innovation. And my aim today is to shed light on creativity itself, how it operates, why it matters, and how it connects with art and science, or it connects art and science, which is profound in order for us to understand how the human brain works and how to generate creative ideas. The art today I would like to focus on is primarily on music. But what I'm saying can be generalized for any art or science. And as we all know, too early in life, many of us are already putting their minds into boxes. I was good at math, I was not good at sports. And that, I believe, is a mistake if we are not open-minded throughout the course of our lives. In this talk today, I have the opportunity to also consider an observation by a poet, philosopher, and romanticist, Friedrich Schlegel, a graduate of the University of Göttingen. And he actually said, that mathematics and music have become a familiar joint program every art should become science. That's what he said. Every art should become science, and every science should be art. So, another philosopher, I think then that's it for philosophy. Pythagoras said, geometry in the humming of the strings, and music in spacing of the spheres. And this is actually a modern type of statement compared to what we have noted and uncovered, namely that Homo sapiens has used music for the entirety of their development or evolution. And here you can see a finding from Ulm in Germany, found around 1990, dated about 42 to 43,000 years before Christ, so long before Pythagoras could make that famous statement. That's not the only one. There is another one. This flute, they were actually all made out of bones. The lower one, found in 1995, dated 45,000 years before Christ. And it shows that these type of instruments gave something extra to the humans. And the statement from a British professor was, there have been cultures without counting, cultures without painting, cultures bereft of the wheel or the written word, but never a culture without music. Because that is maybe one of the reasons why music has been incorporated in clocks. You know, the chimes, you know, very famous chimes from the Big Ben. These are all things that probably, you know, we feel innermost that this is something nice and beautiful. So today, I like to show you what music can do for people that you would not necessarily identify with music. And I hope you forgive me if I concentrate in this talk on people that are, have been Nobel Prize laureates of the Max Planck Society. I picked only a few, by the way. There are now 37. But those, I think, are very famous examples, like Einstein. Einstein was the first Max Planck, Kaiser Wilhelm director in Berlin. And you can see what he says. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. Some people say his violin playing was awful, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the point is, he liked it to relax, right? So Max Planck himself was a gifted musician. He took singing lessons, played the piano, organ, and composed songs. And Max Planck was actually the guy whose family lived in Munich. And this family was an intellectual family, and there was a colleague, a professor for physics, and Max Planck was discussing with him whether or not to actually study physics or music. And this professor says, recommended to him to study music because in this field, physics, almost everything is already discovered, and all that remains to fill is a few holes. So you know that he was the originator of the quantum theory. So this was a big hole, by the way. The other guy,
if you can see it,
that's right. You should note is another famous Nobel Prize laureate, Werner Heisenberg. Heisenberg seemed destined to become a concert pianist. He was reading sheet music with 4, and he could play the masterpieces of piano at the age of 15. So everyone was thinking that he's going to be a musician, a pianist. But then he discovered his father was a professor, I guess, in Munich for Greek, like old Greek language and culture. So he started looking through the library of his father and discovered arithmetic. And that was the end of his musical career. Because obviously we know that he got the Nobel Prize, and his interest in physics have been tremendous. And he, as you know, was one of the fathers of quantum mechanics. So the next guy is a friend of mine. Actually, was a friend of mine. None of them is alive anymore, unfortunately. This is Manfred Eigen. Manfred Eigen was the son of a cellist and a very proficient pianist by the age of 15. And during the course of his scientific life, he studied chemistry. He then decided to give concerts also with big orchestras. Some of them you can buy CDs of. And let me tell you an anecdote. He gave one of these concerts in Basel with a Basel Symphony Orchestra accompanying him. And in the first or second row, there was another Nobel Prize laureate, Sidney Brenner, sitting right next to a professional woman pianist. So once he has finished this piece, the Mozart piece he has played, Sidney leaned over to this lady and asked, so what do you say? She said, not bad for a chemist. So next day, Manfred walked along the Rhine River in Basel and was telling Sidney his newest and latest theory on the hypercycle of evolution. And so he said, Sidney, so what do you say? Well, Sidney said, it's not bad for a musician. So there was Manfred. And then there is a very direct correlation. I read the numbers somewhere that I believe in physics and math, about half of the scientists were trained in music. So now the question comes, what enables us to produce and reproduce music and do so with such fine degrees of technical ability and creative expression? Well, let me show you something that was developed, an analytical tool that was developed in my old institute, Max Planck for Biophysical Chemistry, by a man called Jens Frahm. Jens Frahm, you should know, is the father of what's called the flash patent. The flash patent is in every MRI machine worldwide still, and accelerates the signal that the MRI is providing so that it can be used in a medical sense. This flash patent actually has brought the Max Planck Society from the big guys like Philips, Siemens, 150 million euro. So this is a sign that you not only can do good research, you can also make use of good research. So if you continue that thought and now develop this acceleration even further so that you have not only still pictures in MRI, but you have it fast enough so that it will appear as a movie. This is what Jens Fram did here. And I will show you, let me see, where did I put my, well.
Ich schnitt es gern in alle Rinden ein, ich grüb es gern in jeden Kieselstein.
So you see an opera singer.
Jedes frische Beet, mit Kressen Blumen, die es schnell verrät. Auf jeden weißen Zettel möchte ich schreiben, dein ist mein Herz, dein ist mein Herz, und soll es ewig, ewig bleiben.
So you see the image acquisition is 20 milliseconds. And you could do literally anything with that along these lines. And the next one is an artist from the Berlin Philharmonics in 2015, and he plays the trombone. So having said this, this of course is very nice as it allows us to study the interplay between the nervous system and the musculature, which I'm not going to go through in detail, but you can see how many muscles, singing muscles, are necessary to control that precise singing or the trombone playing. How many areas of the brain are necessary in order to do this. And the key principle really is there is a necessity of millisecond coordination between breath, voice, and articulation. And that cannot be done immediately. You have to learn it through the course of years. And that's why, unfortunately, so many kids give up early, because it takes a long time in order to be proficient, and it takes also discipline in order to stay on that instrument. So what is the controlling center? And the controlling center, of course, is that there are multiple levels of organization in the brain. We have the molecular and cellular level with 86 billion neurons constantly in flux. And unlike other organs where we have a high degree of regeneration, there's only about 700 neurons per day being regenerated. So this does not help us much, for example, if you have like a stroke. So you need the plasticity of the brain, and this is literally the plasticity of the brain that also helps the musician to ultimately can play this almost automatically. Then we have the circuit and network level, second level from above. Neurons connect into local microcircuits and large-scale networks. We have the regional and systems level. I come back to this because certain areas of the brain are dedicated to defined functions. And at the end of the day, this ball at the bottom is the whole brain pattern that directs global patterns of activity, network dynamics, and so forth and so on. So having said this then, how can we examine the intricacy of the brain and the function of the brain? And again, I come back to MRI, but in this case, I'm discussing functional MRI. With that technology, you can uncover areas that are particularly active in the brain because of more blood is flowing into this area. And I show you here something that comes from the Max Planck Institute for Psychiatry. And what you see here on the left side is a client, I'm not calling this person a patient, that has been asked to literally lift the right arm and the left arm. And this is exhibited here by green and yellow light. So this is the actual movement. On the right, we have something that is referred to as lucid dreams. A lucid dreamer is in a state of a REM sleep, but still recognizes and can also have daydreams, recognizes and can be interacted with, because usually if you're asleep, your muscles are relaxed and you're literally not moving. But some of the lucid dreamers can interact with the world while they are dreaming, for example, by blinking their eyes, so you can give them signals. So here the question was a very simple question in analogy to the left side. The person was asked to literally think about lifting the left and the right arm. And sure enough, you have the same area of the brain activated despite the fact that no movement can be seen. So this shows that the activity of the brain in this area is required to then transmit the electricity. And here, the electricity is not transmitted, obviously, because otherwise the hand would go up and down. Now, whoops. So, mapping the brain, then, we have this set of tools. The MRI, functional MRI, EEG, or magnetoencephalograms. So you have an option to actually uncover the activities in the brain, either directly electrical activity or magnetic activity, PET scans, calcium imaging, optogenetics, a very new thing that is coming strongly in the years to go. So as we now have a box of tools, we can actually ask the question, how does creativity work in the human brain? So from measuring activity to decoding creativity. So let's first make sure that we define a couple of things. Creativity versus innovation. Creativity is the ability to generate original and imaginative ideas, while innovation is the process of applying those creative tools. In science, creativity is shown by new theories, methods, technologies that expand knowledge and solve problems in unprecedented ways. In art, new forms of expression, techniques or perspectives that transform how we see, feel, or make sense of the human experience. So the common thread is both require breaking from convention while building on existing knowledge and creating something that didn't exist before. So, what is then creativity and thinking beyond traditional boundaries? And these are the key elements of creativity. Imagination and curiosity, connecting unrelated concepts, willingness to experiment and take risk, problem solving from fresh perspective. And this is important because it actually drives innovation and progress. It helps overcome current challenges and fosters personal and professional growth. So both artists and scientists rely heavily on what's called here intuitive leaps. The mathematician Poincaré described how solutions would suddenly appear to him while boarding a bus, much like artists describe breakthrough moments. There were artists that said, by writing music, I felt I had a muse sitting on my shoulder. So what this means is that rarely breakthrough findings or creativity has been actively progressed while you are thinking about it. I come back to this because that's an interesting concept. Scientific theories often begin as elegant hunches that feel right. So if you're a scientist, you see something, you think, that's good, even though you cannot prove it completely at that point of time, right? So now let's go and take a look at what happens in the brain. And the best photo I actually did indeed find in Wikipedia. And this is the default mode network. And the default mode network is involved in creative work. What you can see here is that various nuclei, various centers on the top part of the slide in red, you can see various centers, and down at the bottom, you can see how these various areas of the brain are interconnected. This is shown here in graphics that demonstrates that there is a whole battery of areas in the brain that will be activated as the default network. So, as what we also found out was that artistic creativity and scientific creativity engage the same brain areas. And hence, the old theory by a guy named Snow, who was talking in the 50s about the two cultures, is not correct in a sense. And, if I would think about in historical terms, and to think about Leonardo da Vinci or Goethe, who were all not just artists. One was a painter, the other, and more, the other was a writer. You will see that they would never have agreed that there are two cultures. For them, it was one. So Goethe was a scientist as well. I mean, a naturalist, we called it at that time. So the bottom line is, indeed, there are no two cultures. Creativity has one common originator within our brain, and it largely, that doesn't help us much, I mean, in terms of stimulating it directly. But this one shows that we need to have a means to actually engage the default network. So there are shared creative processes. Both artists and scientists engage in remarkably similar cognitive processes. Whether a musician identifies harmonic progression or a biologist recognizes evolutionary patterns, both require sophisticated pattern detection abilities. Artists create what-if scenario, and scientists propose testable hypotheses. So in both, there is a large part of aesthetic judgment. I come back to this because that's something one actively studies with the help of scientific tools. So the human brain doesn't distinguish between artistic and scientific creativity. That is or was an artificial construct we have imposed. And in order to study this in a scientific sense, in 2013, I have helped to found an institute, a Max Planck Institute in Frankfurt, And this Max Planck Institute is referred to as Institute for Empirical Aesthetics. And that institute investigates why and how people create art and how they perform, experience, and evaluate it. It explores the entire spectrum, the genetic, biological, and psychological processes. And for each, there are experts, professors, working together at this institute. And it was founded in 2013 and is a very active, playing currently a very active role in identifying what, for example, aesthetics means. I don't know how you feel, but when I was very young and I was traveling with my VW Beetle from Germany to India, of course I was brought up by Western music, classical and modern. Rock and roll was very hot. Then you start going to Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Music sounds different. And it's not a bad music. It's just, that doesn't feel like you like it. But then you go to India, and all of a sudden you have the sitar music playing. And it's again something relaxing, something where you feel comfortable with. So the point is, aesthetics, as far as I'm concerned, has two elements. It has a pre-element that, people say, for example, if you are pregnant and you the mother listens to Mozart, the embryo or fetus, responds positively. But then it's also something, if you look at the starry sky tonight, you can probably do it, you'll feel something very positive. You are in awe of, in aesthetic terms. So beautiful, right? But then there's on top of it a social element. So this difference between the two, this is being studied in the Max Planck Institute. So now we go and enter the next step. I see I'm talking too much. Can robots and AI truly be creative? Or are they simply stimulating creativity by recombining patterns and ideas? What might be missing from machine-generated novelty compared to human creativity? Now let's take a look at this one here, because I've taken this from a professor at OIST. This professor is Jun Tani. He's retired by now, but he has been studying the learning behavior of a robot, and in this particular sense, he has been studying the learning behavior in music and the dance. So let's watch it and read what the, right. So he's robot OP2. By controlling artificial neural network allows me to memorize dances. So now in this artificial network, no neurons, mathematical nodes. There were, some that were, of course, occupied by the learned dance, and others then appeared because then this robot's mind recombined this in unoccupied areas of the node of this particular robot. So that was the, so what does it mean? This guy learned something and did something new with it. So let's see if we can get a better picture about the difference. Well, we have obviously our mind, our brain, the unit, the minimal unit is a neuron, and there's an artificial neuron in the robot. So we have, as I said, 86 billion neurons with more than 100 trillion synapses. This is enormous. The robots have very little in comparison. That's why you don't have to worry about that robots will take over anytime soon, because they will only be able to do defined things with the limited capacity of the, say, the computer they have built in. The other thing is, if you look at us, there is a power usage. The human brain uses about 12 watts of power, roughly equivalent to a dim light bulb. While the industrial robots, they use typically hundreds to thousands of watts during the operation. So again, that is impossible that a robot will have enough brain power to compete with a single human in all the human brain can do. I'm not talking about that the robot is not being able to do subsets. Very well, and they can do subsets probably better than the human can do. So is artificial intelligence really creative? Creativity, if creativity is surprising a new combination and relevance, then yes, AI can be creative on a technical level. It can generate new musical styles or new dances, as we've seen. It can propose unexpected scientific hypotheses. It produces designs humans would never draw, but it feels nothing, fears nothing, wants nothing, desires nothing. Therefore, AI creativity is simulation of novelty, not existential novelty. So what AI cannot do, create truly unprecedented paradigms of break unknown rules, draw from embodied experiences like grief, love, or personal struggle, create with genuine intentionality or personal stakes, intuitively sense cultural moments or experience what we call the zeitgeist, develop authentic aesthetic judgments from first principles. So the future then is humans will have intuition, intention, and taste. AI, variation, volume, and speed. The workflow is humans set questions and have the vision. AI produces 100 or more versions of it. Human curates and transforms. AI refines and expands, and the audience interprets. This is going to be the future. So the key point in the future is creativity. The future of creativity lies not in the human versus AI, but in human-AI collaboration that combines AI's vast computational creativity with human consciousness, intentionality, and wisdom. AI is an infinite space of possibilities. The human is the decision. Together, they become productive disorder. The brain is chaotic, embodied improviser. AI is a massive pattern-combining synthesizer. AI can appear creative, but cannot want. The future, hence, is hybrid, curated creativity, or, in the formula at the bottom, human plus AI are ideas neither could produce alone. So the deeper question, however, and we may now come back to what I started at the beginning, to philosophy. The deeper question is, does creativity require consciousness, intention, or lived experience? Is creativity about the process, having ideas, making choices, or the output, producing something novel and valuable? Can pattern recognition and recombination, however sophisticated, truly be called creative? So do we need an embodiment? In other words, us, our consciousness, the whole of ourselves in order to be creative, and can that be reproduced by AI and robots? As of today, I would say no. But I'm not sure that will stay a no forever. So there may be that there will be creative processes with enough time, enough information fed into the respective computers, having cities city-like structures in order to calculate it, because like I said, you need a hell of a lot of kilowatt to actually run these. But we do not know where this thing will go. At this point, I wouldn't define AI as being creative. So in summary, creativity in both art and science arises from the interplay of imagination, pattern recognition, and problem solving. AI expands this process by generating novel combinations, identifying patterns in vast data, and accelerating creative exploration, while humans provide vision, intention, and meaning. So that's it. You see here a piece of AI and art. It's a piece of art, if you wish. So artists and scientists, that's what was my main topic, should nurture their imagination, seek patterns, and embrace creative problem solving, so we can drive innovation and deepen humanity's understanding of the world. And in brackets, AI will help to accomplish that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. It's always an honor and a pleasure. I'm particularly glad that you had to learn and refresh yourself on German scientists, and you refresh yourself on the world zeitgeist. It's always very good, to remember that. Peter, that spark of the imagination, the touch of God, when the finger of where
that's
what is it? You're as a scientist, if I may try and be personal, when your biggest inspiration?
Well, the inspiration, as I said, comes if you lie on your couch and don't think anything. So you need to actually not think actively. I mean, there's in science probably more than in art, although in art, in terms of technology, it's very similar. You have to have an intellectual basis. But then this spark, as you call it, is undefined. And here, of course, what they call the creativity that they measured in the MRI were questions like, what can you do with a paperclip? So, try to have the client think creative, but is that what we are talking about in terms of breakthroughs? You can't, no. I mean, they cannot put like a Heisenberg into the MRI when he basically thinks about the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So I can't tell you. I mean, the only thing that is really common is that it's, and this is, I may not have pointed it out, but the default pathway is only active if you are resting. So you suppress the default pathway if you are actively, with a prefrontal brain, actively thinking. So that's why people say, well, when I got on the bus, when I was in the shower, it came to me. No one knows how that works. But the bottom line is a lot of people believe that the default pathway needs to be active to generate by means of combining these various areas of the brain to come up with something extraordinary creative. I wish I could do more. You know, could help me, could help anybody, but we have to live with what you got at this point.
It's interesting, right? Because I mean, you have for many artists, right? If you look at you know, sort of the particularly sort of in the 20th century, right? Sort of this regression back to free yourself from all the constraints that you got taught during adolescence, during your maturity, and you want to get back to the purity of creating like a child, of painting like a child. Does something similar, you know, sort of exist for scientists?
Well, definitely, because you know, science is really that you leave secure shores and sail to the unknown. This is it's a principle of science. I guess it's the same too in art. So you have to, and if you look at many of the Nobel Prizes, you know, these people worked on things no funding agency would have funded. Very often, very often. These were things, and I still remember from my friends at my institute, you know, the first paper that they published for what they got the Nobel Prize was in an obscure journal, because no journal wanted to take it. It was something so new, and they didn't understand what the potential was resting in this finding. So that's built into our society, by the way. Our society wants to be conservative, stable, no risk. I think this is generally true in societies, except for a few, as we know. And there are societies where that works better, and others it works not as good. And, you know, it also defines when we look at, for example, Silicon Valley or Apple. You know, if you look at the iPhone is driven by, I would guess, about 10 to 20 patents that were all generated through public funding. So the creativity was not the finding. The creativity was of Steve Jobs to put these 20 patents together in one and generate something that revolutionized the market and the world, I might say. So, you know, the creativity is a broad, it's circumscribing a broad spectrum. And can happen in small things as well. You know, if you're a carpenter and you think of new tools, dentist, you know, how to do it in a implanting, you know, like material that then grows into the bone, you know, these type of things. So creativity is a daily issue, and one should teach how to generate creativity. How to do this. I think this is, and here the schools again are requested to change curricula and have more discussion patterns, have more option for the kids, not to learn by heart what the teacher says, but to interact and solve problems. Because once you start solving problems, you have to think creative.
It's interesting, right? Because at the same time, you know, you've got particularly and now accelerated by AI, as well as the availability of information so ubiquitous, not just through your smartphone, but as a result of that, you being FOMO'd, right? Constantly looking over your shoulder rather than being creative. Actually, what you're doing, you're wasting, you know, I used to waste 50% of my time trying to keep up with the Joneses. Now I'm wasting 95% of my time keeping up with the Joneses. And so the resting space. So how much digital detox do you do?
I'm 100% with you. You should have a sofa in your office. This is, I mean, the resting, but resting doesn't mean being quiet. Resting just means that the default network has to be active. And if people say they are, when they went on the bus or taking a shower, obviously the mind was not thinking about the problem they were actually addressing. And I don't know about you, but I tried that out, and for me it worked sometimes. When I still had a decent job in Max Planck Society, I was, a lot of times, knowing what the next day will bring, I gave myself a problem before I went to bed. And very often, during the course of the night, you come up, or rather, not me, but my brain was sorting things out, how to differentiate between things. For me, that worked very well, actually. So I was clearly in a resting state. Sometimes I didn't remember it in the morning, but no, things happen. Yeah. But that is what some people do. You just ask yourself to solve a problem before you go to bed. Yeah. Well, life is fun, guys.
Please, any questions, any comments from the audience?
Hi, Kenji, one of the founders of Asia Society and also a proud member of the OS community. The question is the following. So you talked about basic research funding by government, which of course there's a lot of issues about that. That's not my question. During the Renaissance, government and state financed artists, the Medici, the French court, not anymore. But the state still finance basic research. So do you believe that states should actually even finance artists?
Absolutely. And depending on which country you live in, they do so. I know there are a lot of German agencies that support scientists being in movie industry, say extraordinary, advantageous or, forward-looking movies, things of this sort. I'm not sure about the painters, but music, you can also get grants to get taught. I mean, the first answer is, of course, you're absolutely right. One should combine these. And in many universities, actually, you have these partnerships. Yeah? I gave a talk here at the Tokyo Gaidai, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, with a similar kind of punchline. At that time, of course, we didn't have AI in a measurable or, in a way that we could see where that will help. But there was always this interaction. And coming back to the musicians among us or among those I showed, people say that at least music helps to structure your brain. So that's why I believe about 50% of these people that are good musicians also end up in science. So there's an intricate interaction or, junction between being an artist and being a scientist. So I agree with all the philosophers I quoted. We should not give up if you are not a good painter in your creative arts in primary school.
So it's interesting. It's the musicians and the scientists, and it's the painters and politicians, because you find a lot of retired politicians who end up taking painting there. One question on that: your Institute for Empirical Aesthetics in Frankfurt, the Max Planck Institute, does that have only scientists, or are there artists in residence?
No. They're artists. We started with 2 artists. One was a musician. Yeah. But it was a musician that was, an academic musician. Okay. So she was a piano player, but she also studied, music at large. The other was a writer, a literature professor.
Wow.
And that was combined with someone who could do the brain physiology, MRI, functional MRI, and a psychologist. So don't ask me, because I haven't really followed up what was coming out of this institute. But that was, for me, it was probably the most daring foundation of a new Max Planck Institute during my time as a president. It's immensely, and can you imagine what it means if you understand what drives aesthetics? For good or for worse. So these things will be uncovered in the years to come. I'm 100% positive.
Yep.
Thank you very much. A very, very, very fascinating and very important discussion. My name is Everett Brown, and the question that I have is it's a difficult question. As a visual artist, I've been more and more aware of how we spend too much time in the visual cortex, and so this has really drawn me into the power of listening. And so the question that I have for you is the work that you do at the Empirical Aesthetics, or the Empirical Aesthetics Institute, is what have you found about the relationship between our senses? And I'm not talking about the five senses, the 22 or 33 senses. The relationship of the senses and creativity.
Right. I cannot answer your question. I tell that to you immediately, because, but it's a fascinating question. Because, and we know ourselves, I mean, you probably included, that there are people who are driven visually, primarily, and there are people that are driven acoustically. I know, I read recently about an interview about an actress. And this actress actually said she's, how to call it in English, legasthenic. So she could not learn texts by reading it. She had to learn text by hearing it. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a fascinating, question to try to identify where, say, these two major senses, hearing and seeing, how they link up in the brain, in order to then also do the same thing of in the brain, in the, let's say, default network. I can't answer your question, but it's a very interesting aspect.
Good morning. I'm Yuki from LVMH, and I'm doing the digital transformation for entire group. And thank you so much for talking about the AI and the creativity. And in terms of the AI, for us, our business, it can be used for increase the productivity and efficiency.
Definitely.
But after that, when people learn how to do things using AI, the next thing we are considering is about how we can be creative.
That's it.
To use this time we could get from the AI usage.
Right.
So in that case, like I learned, like some patterns and options can be helpful to learn about AI thing. But what is the trigger to be creative? Because this is like you mentioned about the intuition, but the intuition is not something you can learn. You can get.
Right.
So how we can tell the people to train to get more intuitive.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I mean, there are triggers, as you know, and I removed the slides because it would have taken us too far. There are electrical triggers for your brain that have a proven capacity to improve creativity. So you just have a cap, and you get electrical pulses, slow, not very high. And that then, in the consequence in the tests, has given rise to more creative answers. We all know, my age at least, in the 60s, there was a whole wave of drugs that have been tested, and by now there's a spectrum of, I don't know, maybe 20 drugs that can enhance creativity. LSD involved, others as well. I have a whole list, but I also
top secret.
I also have put under the slide that I didn't show that there is no enhancement drug that consistently can increase creativity. So. As I said, there was that time when a lot of students took it, and it may have helped, to do certain things. You know that a lot of musicians, and I'm talking more about the modern musicians, have used that and have created fantastic music. So I guess there is something to it. But I wouldn't, I would not want to propose that for generations. So other than that, you need quiet space, relaxation. You need to, like I said, it's really something that AI delivers you all you need. But then comes the decision maker, that is us. So whatever decision you make, this is something then you can use, and on that ground, you may leapfrog to the next. How? I wish I knew. I don't.
What is interesting is that, there's actually, one, certainly my takeaway from Peter's talk is, creativity, intuition is in all of us, right? And the reality is that any corporate and social setting is designed to suppress creativity, so there's plenty of creativity. It's just that in our real existing world, right, we build systems and modes to actually prevent that. It's like an innovator, right? If I'm Google, you mentioned that company, right? I've got a great innovation, a search engine, and I'm going to spend 100% of my time protecting, that intellectual property, and any creative little startup that comes up, I will buy up and kill, right? Which is the real existing world, right? So it's quite interesting because creativity, intuition, these are the wonderful goals that we all aspire to, but then in the real existing world, that's exactly the opposite, right? Because we're designed to suppress it. So there's no shortage of creativity and intuition, right? There's a shortage of flexibility within our existing social structures, within our corporations, to actually empower and scale, that intuition, right? We've got a couple of questions from the rest of the world.
Sure. Everyone is absolutely enjoying your talk this morning. One quick question, I think, which was a good segue from the last question, is what would be the definition of imagination?
Imagine something, Peter.
Well, yeah. What can I say? This is to visualize something abstract, comes to me. So you have an issue, and now I come back to the question from before, the senses. Some people visualize it then. So you have a picture in your brain. Others, for example, Mozart was supposed to have and Beethoven also. Remember, Beethoven at the end of his life, he was deaf. So he had the entirety of the Ninth Symphony, because he couldn't hear this anymore, in his head. And look at dogs. Dogs have a very poor vision. So their imagination, if you wish, is coming through the nose. So they have a spectrum that they have to imagine in the head of what has happened before. And as you know, they can do this, few molecules are enough. If you look at the tracking dogs, this is amazing, right, what they can do. So I think imagination is making use of your senses to form structure, a representation of that in your mind?
Thank you so much. My name is Tomohiro Löhr. I'm with the University of Tokyo, currently building a new faculty called the College of Design.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know. I'm involved. I'm involved in the board.
Yeah. So thank you for that. So my question is about interdisciplinarity, or maybe para or transdisciplinarity, especially with the research institute that you set up. How critical do you think this kind of seeing different perspectives and working with people from different disciplines is critical to then also creativity and this process? And especially from your experience at Max Planck, but also maybe at OIST.
I can say we cannot overestimate the need for interaction between disciplines. And if you look at most of the breakthroughs came at the boundary between disciplines. So that's why I believe what Tokyo University is doing is a step in the right direction. Although it's only one institute, I think one should be even going much further than that and bringing the faculties in a sense together. And you can do this also by defining, let's say, a topic and inviting. I think Stanford is doing this like, for example, in the neuroscience in Stanford. I know they did that. They give a certain topic, and then they invite engineers, neurophysiologists, anatomists, and whatnot to work on that problem. So what I'm saying is it's absolutely crucial to do that. We can do, however, much more than we currently do. And one institute, Tokyo University, is good, but there should be more. And to my mind is, if money is involved, a lot of people try to utilize what they can do best in order to then address a common problem. And I believe this even triggers creativity coming from different minds to actually work together on a given problem.
Thank you very much. On that note, Peter is going to be around for some more personal interaction here. I want to thank Peter for coming out here. I'm reminded of the great jazz musician Miles Davis. Yes. When asked about creativity, he said, "It's the space between the notes."
Yes.
So there you go. The other one he said is also, it's the note not played. Yes. So, sometimes you've got to dream a little bit more in your resting state. Thank you so much. And I hope that you enjoyed the session.